Hello, and thank you for joining. My name is Jennifer Hill, an education specialist at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's National Conservation Training Center in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. In addition to hosting broadcasts, I have the honor of coordinating the Native Youth Community Adaptation Leadership Congress, which is a week-long on-site program for Indigenous high school youth to grow in leadership development, which we welcome you to learn more about. Before moving into our broadcast, I would like to acknowledge that the National Conservation Training Center is located on the unceded ancestral lands of many Indigenous peoples. While we have not found a full account, we are aware that many peoples traversed, cherished, and lived on this land, and they include the Massawamek, the Haudenosaunee, the Shawnee, and the Delaware. As we learn more about the Indigenous peoples who continue to have relationships with this land, we better appreciate the good earth on which we work, live, and learn. And we pledge to grow and sustain relationships with Indigenous communities through collaboration on our training, outreach, our youth programs, museum exhibits, and more. But we encourage others to learn more about the land on which you work and reside. Today, we'll hear from Tim Gatewood and Zachary Jackson regarding the little golden treasure, the Apache trout, and the transformational power of collaborative efforts that led to its recovery. But first, a little bit about Tim. Tim is the White Mountain Apache Game and Fish Department's fishery program manager, and he has been leading Apache trout recovery efforts on behalf of the tribe for more than 20 years. Over that time, he has been involved with many Apache trout monitoring, population management, and reintroduction projects, as well as non-native trout eradication, conservation barrier construction, and habitat restoration projects across the Fort Apache Indian Reservation. And a little bit about Zach. Zach has been working on Apache trout recovery projects for the Arizona Fish and Wildlife Conservation Office, or AZFWCO, in White River, Arizona since 2017. Prior to this time with AZFWCO, he spent 9 years as Habitat Restoration Coordinator with the Lodi Fish and Wildlife Office in California, working on Chinook salmon habitat restoration and reintroduction projects and white sturgeon research, monitoring, and management. Tim and Zach, we are grateful to have you both with us today. And now we're going to move into our discussion. Tim, we'll start with you. What significance do Apache trout have for the local environment and to the tribe?
For that is something that we have seen here since we since we've been here, yes, and it's something that it's part of the ecosystem. So it's important for the tribe that it stays here and continue to exist. So it's just everything's important, and the fish is just part of it.
Okay. How has it been to work with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on the Apache trout recovery over the years?
It's
Be
been
honest.
up and down. It's been up and down. People, but yeah, there's individuals like to do different things differently, and I think so. Right, currently, I think it's gotten to where we work together real well, us and Fish and Wildlife Office, and from there, everything's really taken off. I feel like the last few years, we've been going at a real fast rate of what we're wanting to do, and there's few holdups because we just continue to communicate and, with each other on a daily basis, and I think that's one thing that's really a driving force, that this office really listens to what the tribe wants and they act on
it. Okay. And can you speak to one of the hardest aspects of working with the Fish and Wildlife Service that you've experienced?
Right up the top, there's probably a few things. I just can't think of anything right off. I think there's just a lot of positive things
Okay.
that happen. It's just really, this past few years that it's really hard to come up with something.
Well, that's good to hear. My guess would be turnover with the service could be hard to get used to, but I'm glad to hear that there's been positives. So that's good to know. All right, Zach, did you have any experience working with tribes before your current position? And this is kind of a dual question here. How long did it take you to build a trusting relationship with the tribe, and how did you do that?
I did not have any experience working with tribes before this job. Um, and I'd say it did take, a year and a half or maybe a couple of years to really feel like we were building a solid, trusting relationship. Um, it was tough in the beginning right away when I got into this position. It, I had to do a lot of learning, and I don't always do that quickly. Um, but I think maybe what really helped was um, trying to do a lot more listening than I did talking. You know, Tim mentioned earlier that we're really doing a better job of listening to what the tribe is trying to accomplish. And I think that's really what happened. There was a point there where I recognized that Tim and the department and other tribal departments have a whole lot better handle on this environment and everything in it, and how to get things, like the process for getting things done on tribal lands. Um, and I think I really started taking note of that, really listening before providing ideas, um, and then really just trying to um, do what I could to help the tribe and the tribe's game and fish department accomplish their stated goals.
Yeah, there's the reason we have two ears and one mouth, right?
Yeah.
How would you encourage others to get started working with tribes in their area for the first time?
Um, well, I'm sure it depends on each situation, but I think, we've got some really natural areas where the Fish and Wildlife Service and the AZ FWICO in particular and the tribe have, the same sort of goals, like Apache trout recovery in particular. That's a really good example. And so, I think the key thing to get started is, find the folks that are working with tribes that want to do similar things, and try to identify where there's overlap in goals and objectives, um, and really just start uh, building up quality communication. I think it all um, comes down to that, identifying those overlapping areas where there is interest, and um, folks have different resources they can bring to the table. And I'm probably going to repeat this message throughout, but it's just I see folks, myself included, um, really wanting to say their piece, and there's just listening can be a superpower. And so I just would encourage everybody to really listen to what their tribal partners and other partners are trying to accomplish, and really start from there.
Thank you. All right, Tim, back to you. Was the incorporation of Indigenous knowledge or Indigenous science a key player in the delisting of the Apache trout? And if so, can you speak on how that was?
I think the way we like to look at it is, or people long ago have always managed this place with what they've known to exist, and it's really s- science, science, and our way. And we what we've been doing here for a long time. We continue to do that, and when Fish and Wildlife came in, I think they really brought more tools, I guess, to what we can work and use. As in the past, we didn't have those tools, but it's still basically the same, same thing we're after, and we continue to do that. A lot of what we've done in the past, not just for the fish, but for everything else, the water and natural resources all around. I feel like that uh, where we're at, and when others came, they brought those tools that helped us, you know, maybe protect it a little bit, with different tools that uh, helped us push it a little bit farther ahead. But it's, we tend to think that, or we keep looking at it like it's our goals from a long time ago, and it still exists.
Okay, so combining the tools. And what does the significance of delisting the trout mean to the tribe?
I think what we since I guess when it started, that fish, the tribe noticed that it's really numbers were going down, so they start protecting that, closing off the areas and trying to protect that. But I guess there's a goal to keep it at a certain level or increase that numbers, and we've been able to do that. And I think the tribe looks back at it, thinking that we set a goal and we've reached it, but we're going to continue to uh, keep on top of it so we don't make ourselves look bad as to everybody else. So that's what we continue to do with the help from Fish and Wildlife Service.
Okay. So Zach, Tim kind of answered this question, but what does the delisting mean for the work moving forward now?
Well, I mean, first it's important to celebrate success, and the delisting, the recovery goals were met, and that's because of the hard work of lots and lots of folks. Tim and many of the folks that came before me and came before Tim as well. But in terms of the future, a few years ago, we started, I guess, as a precursor to the delisting, we started a thorough evaluation of the status of Apache trout populations. And pretty early on through that work, we identified Apache trout as being conservation reliant, which essentially just means that we recognize that we're going to need to continue to manage them into the future, or manage the threats that they face into the future, so that they don't become threatened or endangered again. And so once we had done that, we started getting to work on a cooperative management plan, and that was signed and finalized in 2021 before even proposing the species for delisting. And that really says that recovery partners will continue to do the same things that they've been doing at about the same level of effort that brought the species from threatened to recovered in perpetuity. There are threats like non-native trout invasion, wildfire, climate change that are always sort of threatening Apache trout populations, and we just know that we're going to have to continue to work on those things. And And Tim and I have identified a suite of projects that we've been trying to implement for a couple of years, have been implementing for a couple of years. And so working with our teams, we'll continue those projects. I'm sure we've got at least 10 years worth of projects in front of us right now. And, I'm sure we'll come up with more ideas and things will change and we'll have to, address things into the future. So the work's going to look really similar as it has for the last 4 or 5 years, I think, for quite a while. We'll continue to monitor populations. We'll continue to remove invasive trout. We'll keep working to improve fish passage throughout these recovery streams and protect them from invasion using conservation barriers. We'll do habitat restoration where we need to and can. And so, things are going to look pretty similar.
Okay. And how do you think the Fish and Wildlife Service has done in working with the White Mountain Apache tribe?
Like Tim said, I think it's been up and down. I think I think Arizona FWCO has probably tended to maintain a higher level relationship than some other Fish and Wildlife Service programs over the years. But even within our office, there have been times of, better relationships and relationships where we should have done a lot, better, or times when we should have done a lot better. I do think that the relationship over the last 5-6 years has been really, really strong. I think, what we've got going now is working really, really well. And that we've got a pretty durable and good relationship that's really helping to get quite a bit done for the resources out there, both native fish conservation, and we also work together on sport fish management projects as well.
Nice. So in the context of the trout, were there some lessons learned in working with the tribe? And if so, okay, this is a multi-part question, so bear with me. Were there some lessons learned in working with the tribe, and what were 1 or 2 of those lessons, and why were they important?
Well, I think one of the bigger lessons really is just, about the power of really collaborative, cooperative relationships, and how, approaching conservation with that, just really helps things go a lot better. I also, I think the fact that the key player in Apache trout recovery is a tribal entity, really, really benefited the recovery process. I don't think we'd be talking about Apache trout recovery right now if roles were reversed and 75% of the populations were on state and federally managed lands and 25% or less were on tribal lands. I think that the White Mountain Apache tribe were the stewards of the vast majority of Apache trout populations and habitat, really helped, speed recovery of the species. I think the Tim's department and the White Mountain Apache tribe in particular are, some of the easiest partners I have to work with. There tends to be less unnecessary bureaucracy, I think, than there, otherwise is. And they've got a long history of, protecting native species. And so, I think all of that really led to the successful outcome we've seen here.
All right, my next one. It sounds like the Arizona Fish and Wildlife Conservation Office enjoys a special relationship with the tribe that other service programs might not have. What do you think has led to that?
I think just us working together, and if there's a project that comes up, we are part of it. And if we need something, we call them up, and we set up plans to move our goals forward. And it's always we're always involved. And we work with this office real closely, really on a daily basis, and gotten to the point where they're actually hiring tribal members during the summer to help with this and to pass that on to tribal members, to what's going on, and hopefully bringing them into this field. And if not, at least when they're professionals in other fields, they'll understand what this program's about and where we're coming from, and maybe it'll be a voice for us. But they help us with that.
So it sounds like you have very open communication between the tribe and the service, which is awesome.
It's a daily basis,
Okay.
and I meet with them monthly, so that's good.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Zach, I'll ask you, and you can pass too. If you have a favorite characteristic or something you've learned from the trout.
I mean, I think what I'd say is that they've shown a real high degree of resilience, and I think we can all kind of draw lessons from that. But there have been populations, that really withstand pretty extreme effects, whether it's drought conditions, fire. There's some pretty harsh extremes, in terms of winter conditions at times as well. And I continue to be amazed where, there have been areas where we thought we've lost populations through time and some of these, pretty significant stochastic events. And they've figured out a way to, but through their resiliency superpowers, hang on and come back. And it's pretty inspiring.
Oh. What's one misconception you or other service employees you've worked with had about working with the White Mountain Apache tribe? Back to a deeper question.
Yeah. I guess that it'd be hard. I think that's a misconception I had. I mean, and it, I mentioned it earlier. It was not easy to build a relationship right in the beginning when I got here. But I learned a lot through that. Over the years, I have gotten sort of, a number of, oh my gosh, how do you do it? How did you do that? And sometimes it's talking about, working through a process, or working with a particular department or a particular personality, or I don't know, a sort of a variety of things. But again, I find, Tim's department, the tribe, the tribal council, to be really easy to work with, generally more rational and less unnecessarily bureaucratic than most of my other state and federal partners. I mean, I definitely, had to learn quite a bit and improve my communication skills, during my first couple of years here. And that helped a lot, but no great big secrets.
Yeah. Great. Those are the questions I had, but I wanted to open it up and see if either of you wanted to share anything else about your story or your work, or add on to anything we've touched on already?
It's just been an adventure, working with the fish and this Fish and Wildlife Office. There's always a lot of challenges. Things change, just like you brought up. Different people come in, different ideas. I think we have been able to work with a lot of people, and like I said, it really changed a lot in the last few years, though, to where I think we've been able to move stuff forward a lot faster than we've been doing in the past, and it's just communicating. And like I said, it's an adventure. That's what I tell those kids that I hire. I said, you get in this field, it's something that when you get up, you should be excited about. Jump up, go to work, and I hope we continue to recruit people like that.
Aw. That's wonderful. All right. Well, I want to thank you both for your time and sharing with us today. As a reminder, each broadcast is recorded and available on NCTC's website. If you wish to learn more about this broadcast series or be added to the listserv, please email myself, Jennifer Hill, at jennifer_hill@fws.gov. We also welcome your broadcast suggestions. Thanks again for joining us today.